Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, Bill. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Yeah. I mean, it's tumultuous time
Yeah.
everywhere. All eyes are on Carson City and on DC right now.
Did Jennifer or Anazi respond to your email? We talked about it after. I didn't see anything on the chain, but I know they're looking at scheduling something.
Oh, good. That's great. I haven't heard anything yet, but I trust you guys.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I know it's a crazy time, and the next 2 weeks is probably not going to work, but anytime after would be great too.
Excellent. Um, I'm going to have to hop off in about 25 minutes or so to jump onto a conference with the senator. But do you think I could get 30 seconds or something to at the top to just address the group real quick about our constituent services?
Yeah, that would be totally fine. In fact, if
Cool.
I mean, I know people are hopping on. Maybe I'll go ahead and kind of just give you 30 seconds right at 11 o'clock, and we'll let you do that.
Cool. Thank you.
Great, of course. All right. Good morning, everybody. I know that we've got just a couple folks on the call, but we're probably going to get some more here in about a minute or so. We're still waiting on the guest of honor, Mary Lau, who is the president and CEO of the Retail Association of Nevada. So once she is on board, we'll be ready to go, of course. But just to introduce myself, I know a lot of you have seen me already throughout the Path Forward series, but I'm Christine Brown, not Ann Silver, like it says on the screen. I'm Christine Brown, the Director of Member Engagement for the Reno Sparks Chamber. And it's my pleasure to keep this call series going. It's called the Path Forward series, where we talk to community leaders, state leaders, stakeholders about issues of importance as we navigate the COVID-19 pandemic. And honestly, this is something that we're going to keep doing for as long as it takes. We've noticed and we are trying to respond to the fact that there is a great need to hear from those who are leading the charge in our community in terms of navigating our way through the economic fallout, public health issues, and everything in between when it comes to COVID-19. So it's our pleasure to do that for you, and we are so pleased to have every single one of you as members. You are so important to us. We would not be here without you. And so please continue to stay in contact with us, stay in contact with me if there are people you want to hear from. If there's someone who you think should be on this call series and you haven't seen them yet, or you want to see them again, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. So I'm not seeing Mary on the line yet. Mary, are you here? All right, we will just wait a couple minutes for her. And until then, we've got Bill Chan on the line with us today. He's at least with us for a little while, which is fantastic. And he works with Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, and he has a quick update for you all on some constituent services.
Thank you. I think Christine kind of summed up the state of play right now pretty well. There's a lot of uncertainty and unknowns, and I've never owned a small business or of my own, but I know those things are not great for anyone's state of mind, at least, or planning, which is essential. So I just want to make it known that Senator Cortez Masto's office is we've shifted our focus pretty significantly toward constituent services and helping Nevadans. So if you and your small business or someone that you know think that we might be able to assist in any way, please feel free to reach out. I will drop my email address in the chat, but also Christine and Ann, they know how to get a hold of all of us, so you can reach out to them to connect with us. When it comes to the PPP loans or EIDL, we've had some good success there, and when we see what the future relief package looks like, I'm sure there's going to be a piece that is of interest to some folks on this call. So keep us in mind as those things come out. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. And we really appreciate the fact that that all of you and also the senator have made yourselves so available to our members throughout this crisis. It's amazing to have that kind of lifeline and at a time when we need it the most. So thank you so much for all you're doing. Let's see, do we have Mary on the line yet? All right, it doesn't seem that we have Mary with us quite yet, so we'll just hang on tight for a couple minutes and we will wait for her to hop on and then get the call started. I just got word that Mary is trying to log on right now, so we should be getting going here very shortly. All right, it looks like we've got Mary on the line. Fantastic. All right, Mary, go ahead and unmute yourself.
I'm extremely grateful you are so efficient, because last night I cleaned off all my old emails, and thank goodness you put the Zoom meeting on the calendar.
I know how it goes. Sometimes it's difficult to keep track of all of these Zoom meeting links we have going on these days. And it's nice to have them in multiple places.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you for all the help you've given me on this.
Of course, my absolute pleasure. And thank you so much today for being with us today to talk to our members. And we'll just go ahead and jump right in, because I know like we've said already today, all eyes are on Carson City and Washington D.C. and there's a lot going on and there's a lot to talk about. And when it comes to your expertise, I know that you are someone who a lot of people want to talk to right now. So thank you so much for your time.
That's a very polite way to say I've been here a hell of a long time. Thank you.
We need it. We need your insight. So just for folks who don't know, Mary Lau has been the president and CEO for the Retail Association of Nevada since the late 80s. And needless to say, she's not only an expert in all things retail industry related, but she's also a go-to resource for the economy and also for the political landscape here in Nevada. So that's really what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about a little bit about what's going on at the legislature. We're going to be talking about retail. We're going to be talking about supply chain. And we'll just go ahead and jump right in. But Mary, do you have anything that you want to say before we get started?
Well, I would say that this whole thing, I mean, it's easy to say in COVID, there's been a problem, but actually retail started experiencing some problems prior to COVID even happening. I mean, we're online for 20,000 to 25,000 store closures prior to that, and this exacerbated it anyway. A lot of what's happening is the face of retail is changing, and I'm sure that's in part of your questions and things here. But it's a changing out of what it looks like, and we call it the fortress malls versus the lifestyle malls. The lifestyle malls are becoming a lot more popular. Fortress malls, in the industry, it's called the Simonizing of retail, because the Simon properties are purchasing a lot and making deals with brand management companies and marketing companies and stuff. I don't know how many of you went into a Penny store when they had Sephora inside. But that's a lot of what it's going to look like. So smaller retails will have the opportunity to house in a formally large retail setting. I call it condominium retail, and nobody has called it that. I mean, that's just my personal thing. So that is changing immediately. Pandemic, we're going to get to how that really brought in some differences. And there's some great opportunities in retail now. So I'm looking forward to our conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And that's a great analogy for that particular phenomenon. And it's interesting to see how, even prior to COVID and now that COVID is here, just how innovation has really led the charge, and will continue. And those who are able to innovate and pivot are the ones who are going to, withstand this onslaught a lot easier than others. So we'll just go ahead and jump in talking with about some current issues. So I think one of the things that's on a lot of people's minds when it comes to retail, when it comes to small business right now, is what could happen in the legislature in regard to liability protections or a liability shield for businesses. Do you mind speaking to that issue in case our listeners aren't familiar with that?
Well, there's two separate tracks for this. There's the federal track, of which the federal government is trying to put in some liability issues, and we keep getting caught up in the re-election strategies versus constituency desires and needs. And it is equally as scary federally as it is, statewide area. And until people get back to governance, everybody is just twisting in the wind all the time. So the liability provisions that McConnell is looking at it's a pretty good package and stuff, but it has a dead date, which is understandable. I mean, we don't, once we get through this crisis, then the knee-jerk reaction of it, we didn't have to discuss liability for swine. We didn't have to discuss liability for Ebola. We didn't have none of that stuff. Right now, everybody is they're on the Titanic, and they keep running over to see which side is closest to the water. And then they run up to the other side, but it's not working for us. The same thing is happening here. Everybody, probably your members are so well informed anyway, and does an amazing job that we are not willing to, as a business community as a whole, trade off workers' compensation for liability shielding, because that just opens the door to a whole nother set of problems. So we've got people on our team, which is our team being Chambers of Commerce, Trade Association, and the taxpayers. For years, that was my stump speech. I don't care who you are, what you are, who you belong to. You need to belong to your chamber, belong to your trade association, belong to taxpayers, and then you're covered. Social programs, the Elks Lodge, Lions, that's up to you. But these protect your business. And right now, these are the ones that have formed the coalition to help protect your business. So you can't let one go without the other. And in many respects, the workers' compensation piece could just kill people. I'll take it to the ultimate extreme. The culinary union has already got a lawsuit out there saying we don't feel safe. Well, a lot of people and their representation files a lawsuit, therefore we get your attention, therefore we get you to the bargaining table. So this is probably a bargaining table ploy. But if you have any members that are class action lawyers, I will not apologize for this statement. We don't want you forming class action suits against people that followed the rules, had a lack of clarity in governance, and had multiple restrictions that took a long time to get interpreted and reinterpreted, and to defend ourselves and our businesses in court too. So it's a dual track. We're not going to give up on either side of it. And even if Nevada passes one and Mitch McConnell gets Nancy Pelosi to agree to something other than her favorite ice cream, then we can turn around and work with both of those. Federal law requires you meet or exceed. So everybody knows what's in the McConnell bill. It's not a secret. So when we're crafting and working with people for this bill, it's like, we're fine. We'll take both. And if this is a little bit better, it's the exceeding part of it. Probably too long of an answer for
Oh,
that.
no, no, thank you.
Okay.
It's an issue that is
It's
gaining a
vital.
lot of momentum nationwide, especially as I think there's a list of 10 to 15 states that have passed some sort of liability
Yeah,
shield.
Utah is the best model out there.
Yeah.
Utah has a different set of circumstances. They have the super majority, and the three branches of government are, or I'm sorry, judicial doesn't have a political party and stuff. But we can't do anything until, as a business community, as a social community, as even governance, until we can get a grip on contact tracing. I mean, when you have somebody that is quoted in the LVRJ of saying, yeah, I've been out of work I've been home self-quarantined for 8 days and nobody's called me. That's not contact tracing.
Right. And that's actually a perfect segue, because I wanna flip the coin over briefly and get your take on the best way to balance liability shields protections for businesses and also protecting workers. What do you think is the best way to ensure that we're able to protect businesses and also workers at the same time?
Well, in many respects, it's sort of reversed. If you protect your workers, your business is protected.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's really easy for me to write a paycheck. And, I have a small business and stuff too. But unless I'm on the front lines, me personally, then they're not protected. So we do want to follow the CDC guidelines. Everybody does want to make sure people have, and government bailouts are another issue. I mean, we can go back and talk TARP and everything else, but this is important because it kept people home. It kept people socially distanced, and it's fine. And businesses determined how to work with it. The interesting part about it is that the people that determined who was essential businesses was actually Homeland Security. And the governor took their guidance, because what they wanted was the most amount of services that a household would need in a smaller location and a smaller footprint and a smaller track. Now, so they changed that outlook, and they went to those areas, which caused some confusion for people and stuff on how come I'm not essential. But it was really a social grid, if you will, of what the public would need. But at the same time, our workers need, now some of the things that can be done at a larger scale level is, let's go back to the mall example. Have stations in between stores. Like Summit Mall is a beautiful example for up here. The difference is Meadowood isn't completely open yet because of the enclosed part about it. But you can have hand washing stations nearby. You can have more the airplane and legislative thing with the hand sanitizers, assuming people don't steal them. That's a whole nother story. But there's the delicate balance there between ADA compliances versus Homelands and versus the governor's orders. And then you get down to OSHA interpretations and stuff. But the adhering to those guidelines, encouraging those guidelines, and sticking with the guidelines is very, very important. If you don't have a healthy and safe and comfortable workforce, and some of it has to be realistic. I mean, you can't eat your food through a mask. We get that. And you can't, there's an OSHA interpretation of somebody has to wear a face shield if they can't do a mask, versus an ADA interpretation of it, versus the other areas that people don't think about. A chiropractor's office, for sense, they're saying they have to put on a face shield. How do you lay down on the table with a face shield and not choke off your nose? You know, this kind of stuff. So practicality is important too. But once your employees are covered, you're covered. And then you've done everything you can. Now, you can't stop your employees from going to a backyard barbecue with a sign up front saying catch COVID here. You know, you can't do that. You know, it's not going to happen, but you can make it as important to you as it is to them. And you'll see in a lot of the national chains that are making mask mandatory regardless. The problem in Nevada is when the governor passed his edict and they had the cute little slogan, no shoes, no shirt, no mask, no service. Well, that was adorable, except for the fact that they didn't take into place the violence. And then we have a tendency in governments lately to take away personal responsibility. In the Western states, this is the only state that a person cannot get a fine for going into a store, a retail store, or a restaurant or anything else without wearing a mask. So you have no backup. And we're just crossing our fingers every day because part of being responsible for your employees is also helping them to avoid that problem in that situation. We don't want to have a clerk in a retail store telling somebody they can leave, they have to leave, and having that person go off on our clerks, you know.
Sure,
You're in a dress shop, and that's part of the opportunities too that come up. But you've got somebody arguing, and then you've got people that have advocated for masks, and yet they're seen without one. So it's like personal responsibility too.
sure.
Was that a non-answer?
No, thank you. No, we have definitely heard a lot of our members talk about, sadly, how, you know, mandatory mask wearing has been largely embraced by employees in their businesses, and they've appreciated the measures that a lot of small businesses have gone to in order to ensure safety. But members of the public have really made it difficult on these employees and on these workers to enforce these guidelines and to keep a safe environment for all, which is more than unfortunate.
It's like our clients and our customers are struggling with the concept of freedom versus responsibility. And you don't give up one for the other. And with full cooperation comes a flattening of the curve, comes further freedoms. And it's a hard one. I mean, you try to argue with somebody and you know, everybody saw the video of the two women going up and down at the Wynn. I mean, and now there's an hysterical parody of that one on YouTube. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's even the parodies are educational.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. I want to circle back to even a comment that you made toward the beginning of the call about the state of retail. And, you know, you had mentioned that retail was already going through a shift prior to COVID. And then, of course, COVID introduced a whole host of other challenges. What would you say the state of Nevada retail is right now today?
It's redefining itself, and it is struggling a bit, but there's amazing opportunities in retail too. And one of the things that we did in the very beginning was said, okay, you're closed right now. The next phase will be curbside. We know that is going to happen, and it happened very smoothly. But take this opportunity to do SWOT analysis. Take this opportunity to judge where your business is, and then take this opportunity to redefine what you want your business to be. You know, there's huge opportunities in the brick and click, and that isn't just a major retailer. That is, you know, it's in my car. I've got the greatest mask in the world that I got in Portland, Oregon, for Pete's sakes, during the middle of the riots, but what the heck, you know. And then reservation shopping is another thing. Shop small, local, independent. I mean, those are really good things, but the important thing is to know your customers and know your clients, because you've got augmented reality now where you don't have to have a dressing room. Now, some of this stuff isn't immediately reachable for somebody who just maxed out their credit card to try to get some kind of inventory to reopen their business, but it's future thought. You know, everybody that's been to Consumer Electronics Show, you walk in and you take this dress, quote unquote, off the display, you put it over you, and you see what the dress looks like on you. And you can turn around and see the back of you, which is amazing. But that kind of stuff, then virtual reality is another bit of shopping stuff. The e-commerce integrated with in-store. But what's becoming important to people now is the social consciousness issues too. Sustainability is huge. Fast fashion days are kind of over. The days that you sat there and went to a store, bought a gown, threw it away because you could, God forbid, never be seen in that one again for the same event, isn't happening. We're getting a circular economy going where I'm not going to wear this, I'm going to donate it. They're looking more for quality versus quantity again. A lot of it is, you know, and take, again, politics out of it. But a lot of people agree with Buy America First in America, you know, and trying to get the manufacturing back here. Japan just committed $2 billion to move their manufacturing from China back to Japan. So people are recognizing that a world economy is too much of a vulnerable economy. But at the same time, you have to be able to look at what the trends are, but the quality stores and things that are really offering the good deal is there. The reservation shopping is a great idea for right now. Or even I've seen people that'll hand out something if they're waiting outside. You're not just sitting there twiddling your thumb. You know, would you like a bottle of water, you know, or something like this. So there's a during COVID reopening strategy, and then there's an afterwards. Start looking at your trade journals. If you sell tchotchkes, look at what's working for that. If you sell dresses, look at what's working for that. Start really experimenting with it, and then testing and testing and testing. I'm sure the chamber does constantly. You know, we are out in polls multiple times a year just to find out what the public thinks before we even open our big mouth. You know, so we align with our members' needs before we turn around and say, oh yeah, everybody's willing to pay more modified business tax. And nope, they don't want this. They don't want that. One of the problems that's going to come in the future is we've got to watch carefully the social justice reform issues and the defunding of the cops, you know, because I made the comment earlier, I bought the mask in Portland. Well, there was a protest that was building down by the Morrison Bridge. And my girlfriend and I decided it was time to go back to the hotel and have some wine. And there were agitators clearly there because they were walking by us at the time. Some of those businesses will never open again because the emotional toll of it. There's a jeweler that when I was a kid, we used to go look at his stuff because I was born in Portland. And 40 years, I'm done. I'm not doing this again. So it's going to be an intelligent mix of what's important, what isn't. And we just had that big arrest last night or yesterday, whatever it was, of MS-13 in Las Vegas. Those are the people that take advantage of what's going on socially now. It's not even the movements that are being espoused. It's the people that come in and aren't part of the movement. Because what people don't seem to realize is a protest is usually coordinated with the police. And they know where they're going to go, where they're going to march, how they're going to march. And then all of a sudden you see people coming in that aren't part of it, breaking windows, looting. We had a big, huge bill that we worked on for years and sort of fine tune every year, which is organized retail crime. And that affects our small businesses because those are the people that get broken into. You know, I mean, it's harder to run into a huge box or retail I'll just say Dillard's for the lack of a better name. It's easier to raid Jared in the Summit Mall than it is to raid Dillard's, because you don't know the outlet of the store and what is available and what isn't and how much time you have.
Sure. So turning now to back to COVID-19 and some of the lessons learned by retailers. Undoubtedly, and you touched on some of the things that retailers can and should do in order to pivot. We're told again and again, and no one has a crystal ball, which has been vastly overused phrase now at this point. But we're told to expect potentially another wave of the virus in the fall, that things could get worse before they get better. What are some things that you encourage retailers and small businesses to consider, should we face another wave of the virus that causes us to, for instance, go down to phase 1 again?
Well, I don't think, now this is an opinion, economically, this governor can move back to 1. He might move back to curbside, but that's okay. It's survivable versus shutting your doors. I mean, this business about the bars, it's like, it's confusing to a customer to turn around and say, I can have a drink, I can have liquor with my food at a restaurant, but I can't go to the bar and have my drink at the bar with food, so it's COVID doesn't understand that kind of distancing. So again, do your SWOT analysis and make sure what you can do. If you're going to do your reservation shopping, if you're going to be able to enhance your online presence, if you're going to, a small business will have a database of their customers, turn around and contact your customers and say, we're still in business, but, and brush up on technology, because that's everything right now. You could, this is totally just pulling it off the top of my head, but we're having more Zoom meetings than we ever wanted. What about a Zoom fashion show of what I have in my walk-in store?
Mm-hmm.
A Chico's can advertise nationally, and they're in those lifestyle centers, but a store in Midtown doesn't advertise nationally, but they do have a list of who they've got, and then they can say, hey, this is something that might work. I don't know.
Right.
Be inventive, because necessity and the mother of invention.
Right, absolutely. And like we noted at the top of the call, innovation is what is driving businesses ahead right now.
And that's what we're good at.
Exactly. And it's been thrilling to see how so many businesses have risen to the occasion and haven't said, this is too much for us, but have really said, okay, let's figure this out. Let's find a way, let's carve a path. And that's been phenomenal to see. One of the big challenges, right at the start of the shutdown, and we may or may not have to, broach that topic again. We'll just have to wait and see. One of the big issues was supply chain, and we had, especially when it came to more essential items, keeping grocery stores well stocked, etc. What do you think? Do you think that the supply chain in Nevada has it bounced back, and 2, what do we need to do in order to ready our supply chain for any future difficulties?
Well, the problem is in March we had 1.5 times more purchases than Black Friday versus any of the Cyber Tuesday, whatever, Cyber Monday. I don't know what days they are now, but the problem was, again, Homeland Security and their infinite wisdom said, okay, people are going to need this. So let's take it down to eggs. When we started having some problems with eggs, we didn't have any problem with eggs. The chickens didn't stop laying. Yeah, we had Tyson had some problems, but then it switched to another area and everything was good, but we had no lumber mills. You had no ability to manufacture egg cartons. Then you go to government regulation. We couldn't get the government to allow us to sell eggs in a container that was other than the pre-approved carton things. I mean, you buy your eggs in a little pulp carton, or you go full organic, hello, and you buy the eggs in the folded plastic. Either which way, the manufacturers weren't able to give us the product that you needed to begin with. We were able to shift the supply chain because we work very closely in Nevada, let's put it that way, with Paulino's and our grocers and stuff who were open. And it's like Mesquite started running out of stuff. So Brian Wachter and Paulino's got together and said, they need this. Can we shift this order, this truckload from here to there? And we were able to do it. And that was things that retailers on a different level could react to. But now you're getting the only thing out there that's been approved as far as spray it on and COVID, dies a painful death and screams on its way out the door, is Lysol spray. You can't get it now again because of the massive buy-off. So if they shut down more, then they're going to have to compensate by leaving other areas open. I mean, we had to shift from Ford Motor Company, shifted and a couple others to ventilators. And as we've learned more about the disease, ventilators are very harmful. We need the CPAC more, possibly. I mean, this is all evolving. We will have guaranteed, without a doubt, some kind of a spike in the fall because that's our flu season. Now, how are you going to identify my runny nose, my headache, my aches and pains, and my nausea is the flu from 7 years ago revisiting me, or is it COVID? So you're going to have that. Again, testing. Your shots are important and stuff like that. But the supply chain, if it starts looking like things are tightening up, then people in the smaller industries, I would suggest, our small members, we've already said, what's your best products? Order them, store them, non-perishable kind of stuff. And then go for the more quality. Don't try to sell 10 things of this. Get a better quality, see how it moves. And if it moves well, then have 20 of those available, because you may not be able to order them again. But that's one of the trends that's happening is people aren't really into the fast fashion stuff. They want something that is multi, and there's been some real blowback on the fashion industry. I mean, there was one particular fashion store, Burberry, that they burned $1 billion worth of product because they didn't want the dollar value to go down. Well, did that offend a few people? I think so. Corporate America made a big mistake on something like that. You don't protect your brand by destroying your brand. Right. And so.
All right.
You were going to ask a question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just a quick reminder to everyone that if they have questions, to use the chat function within Zoom to ask any questions that you have for Mary, because we're closing in on the end of the call right now. So while folks are dialing in whatever questions they still have for you, Mary, I'll just ask you one more, and it's pretty simple. But aside from liability shields, protections, what else are you watching at the Nevada Legislature right now?
We're watching for industry-specific harm, because part of what's happened in the past is people cut deals for their best interest, they think. And all they've done is delayed the inevitable. Now, I'll use the mining industry as an example. They were approached by the administration to prepay their taxes, which they have done in the past. And then they had to figure out how to do it to the best of their advantage, because at a certain point in time, when the price drops again, and gold is a commodity, it is not a tangible product. And when it goes down, then all of a sudden local governments owe them money back, and they get credits and they have no money coming in. So they negotiated that big deal. And it's like, if your mother approves it and your father says no, who are you going to go to? So they're playing the shell game right now that says, okay, well, you agreed to that, but we think we can do this too. And we're going to oppose that as our association, because there's going to be an MBT conversation too, where all of our employers are going to have a conversation about their tax on the modified business tax. Because when they put in, and that's where we adamantly objected, and we never removed our objection as an association to the tiered tax structure, because now it's like, okay, whose turn is it this? Oh, we're going to stop here. And so that's the stuff, the bifurcating of the retail industry, any business industry, I should word, is not a good social plan. It's not a good structural plan. Until they're willing to have a major conversation about taxes, which includes some services and everything else, we're a service-based economy. So let's reduce the amount of sales that our people collect and have responsible to pay if they don't collect it, and give consumers a break, because more people engage in goods than they do services. So we have to have a full conversation, and we always testify for mining, for gaming, for business, for manufacturing, whatever, as a united community from the retail association perspective. Because oxes get gored all the time, and it's only a matter of time when it's your ox's turn.
Yes, I certainly do not envy the challenge that the legislature is facing right now. It is a task to be had. That is for
Yeah,
sure.
and I hope they govern instead of run for office.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my biggest hope out there is that our legislature governs, our Congress governs.
Right. You know, and that seems like a great place to leave the conversation on, you know, a charge and also a hope. That hope.
Okay, Christine, thank you.
Yes.
And I apologize for being so mouthy.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Don't really want me in a room.
No, it was a pleasure to have you, and you're certainly welcome back. And I'm just glancing over at the chat. I'm not seeing any other questions, though I'm sure everyone is digesting all of this information and considering and considering.
Well, you guys do a good job at the legislature too. I will add that. Your lobbyist is well known and represents you well.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, Mary, thank you for all that you do, and thanks for being with us today.
Okay. We'll talk to you guys later. Thank you.
All right. Sounds good. Bye, everyone.